Welcome back to the CONVO Couch, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pasta Jardula.
I'm Fiorella.
And we have Johnny Sue on the ones and twos. So, fam, we got to dive right into it because last night was a little bit crazy. We were getting prepared for the show today, and then we had a little tweet, and it kind of set a little things off. Little tweet.
A little birdie.
So let's just jump right into it, and let's talk about what we're going to talk about right now, because I think that is the confusing about what's going on today. A little talk amongst the progressives about Elizabeth Warren, Tulsi Gabbard, and where the Bernie Sanders fans all kind of fit in, and where mainstream media fits in, fam.
Right. So Warren has once again backed off of Medicare for all. And it's a very slight kind of backing off. Then the reason I want to talk about it is because when Tulsi Gabbard was really honest about that, the fact that there is going to be a very small amount of private insurance, first of all, in every single plan, including Jayapal's, who's, by the way, her plan is the best one out of all of them. And that's the one Tulsi adopted. And there's going to be a transition period, obviously, with Bernie and her. It's like a 4-year period. But with Kamala Harris, which isn't even Medicare for all, it's like a 10-year period, and it's completely different. So Elizabeth Warren had been touting that she is so pro Medicare for all, that she's all about it. But when we saw her in interviews, she would sort of kind of go back and forth. And it was very clear on this last interview. She had one with Status Quo, where she avoided the question, and the other one with the CNN guy. So let's kind of break it down here. So while MSNBC spends a lot of their time, though, smearing Sanders, TYT spends a lot of their time smearing Tulsi. But they show their bias ever so subtly enough that it becomes even more dangerous than a blatant smear. Because when someone, like we were talking about before, when someone is an establishment or not a right-winger, you know that they're not with you. You know, like that they're like, they hate certain things, and okay, that they're very honest about it. But when some of these establishment Democrats, they pretend that they're for the people. And so it's worse because they're pretending to be your friend. And I feel like that's the case with TYT as of late. And like, full disclosure, I was a huge TYT fan. I used to watch them all the time, especially the show with Anna and Jank. Right before, like, I know it was 3:00, so I would work out, then I would watch them, and then I would go to work, or I would do whatever it is I needed to do.
How about Emma and Jordan back then, too? Like, going out into the crowds and stuff.
Yeah.
The work they did was amazing as well. I mean, I loved Anna and Jen. But even following up with Jordan and Emma at that time, you know, we were huge fans, and I just want to point that out, fam. So
yeah. And then, you know, I'm a very I have to be honest, like their reporting changed. It wasn't just the let's all unite behind Hillary Clinton thing that did it, because I understand that. Even to a degree, I understood the significance of defeating Donald Trump. I understood that perspective, even though I didn't necessarily agree with the lesser of two evils. I voted for Jill Stein in California. But it was so more so the Russiagate narrative and pushing that. And then also after that, when they took this money, which we will talk about later, and then also after that, Tulsi was the last thing that I think did it for a lot of people, including Jimmy, that it was just so blatant.
Yeah.
They never talk about...
I was just going to say something, too, about at that time, and I just want to point out, too, as well, because I don't want to leave out, when you were talking about before the Russiagate stuff, too, fam, remember the DNC lawsuit? They were so just, like, passe about it. Well, this is kind of dumb. You're never going to get the money back. Especially like John Aradola. I don't even know how to say his name. The most boring guy on TYT. Don't get me wrong. The information coming from him is good sometimes, but I'd rather watch grass grow or paint dry. That's how boring he is. But even his remarks about... that lawsuit. And that was a big turnoff for a lot of people, too, because a lot of people wanted to see a lawsuit go through. We had the evidence that they cheated, and they kind of just went away from it and directly kind of pivoted right towards, we got to vote for Clinton. We can't have Trump. Sorry for interrupting you, but I wanted to point that out. It was really important to me.
So they never talk about Warren's lack of foreign policy astuteness, or the fact that she basically stole Sanders' entire platform, nor do they ever fairly criticize her Kamala Harris. Or when it comes to Gabbard, however, they are actually constantly talking about her being an Assad apologist, her LGBTQ record, her being a Hindu fascist. And it's not only just on the show, but it's also independently on Twitter. So
especially Anna.
In the age after 2016, after the DNC rigged the primary, as Pasta was saying, we had to watch Bernie endorse Hillary, and then we had to watch Bernie go campaign for Hillary after he got cheated. So this is all for the sake of avoiding Trump, and like I said, I already get that. But people aren't going to do that anymore. I mean, the people aren't going to be naive anymore. People are not going to just accept blatant corruption and swallow it just because it's Donald Trump. It didn't work then, and it's not going to work now. So let's see what Warren has actually said on Medicare for All as of late. So we have a first clip, Johnny. It's at 1 minute and 40 seconds.
Status coup in the
I'll
House.
Stop you, yeah.
Ex-TYT people.
Right.
Important is that the unions be respected in the work that they've done and be part of the negotiations. But we've got to transition to a system that works better for everyone. Having private insurance companies suck $23 billion in a single year out of our healthcare system is simply not sustainable. We need to get to a place where no family in America goes broke over medical bills.
So people pay $23 million.
Thanks, guys.
So we can, yeah,
Very vanilla.
exactly. So that wasn't
Very
that bad. I mean,
broad.
she said a lot of the right things, but it was very genetic, and I could tell she was really uncomfortable with answering the question. She was responding to a question about a lot of the unions already have healthcare, so the unions are fighting to get their workers things that are guaranteed, like guaranteed healthcare, guaranteed paid time off, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of these unions, I've talked to my friend Nancy, who's a teacher, they're gonna have to pay something a little bit more because they already have it included. Like, for instance, they have a pension, so she doesn't have to worry about paying. But most of them are willing to pay a little bit more so everybody gets health care. So they were kind of touching that because that is a valid concern that a lot of people have. And she kind of answered it generically, but where she really, really messed it up, which I think that same day with this man over here at about, I think it's 20 seconds.
The second video? Gotcha.
You had a town hall
David
last
Axelrod?
night,
Yeah.
and the questions came up about Medicare for All, including people who were skeptical about it. And if you believe polling, there is quite a bit of skepticism, not about the idea of Medicare for All, but about the idea of doing away with private insurance. Does that affect your thinking?
Sure it does. And it tells me that the transition is really important. As we negotiate the pieces to get there to a system that is sustainable, we got to make sure that we've got everybody at the table, that labor unions are at the table, and that they're getting full compensation. So, yeah, there are a lot of pieces to get this right, but you start by setting the goal and then aiming toward it.
Okay. And that was Nico right over there because he starts discussing it. So what really bothered me was when she started saying you start setting the goal and then you work towards it. That is to me double talk for we're not really there yet. You know, I'm going to give you around the question. We're going to start to set the goal and we're going to get there. We're going to set the goal. No, there's no setting the goal. There is Medicare for all, period. Every single person is covered, period. You have to be very specific. You can say that, yes, there will be a sector for private insurance that's going to remain very small for whatever it is that people aren't going to, that isn't covered by regular health insurance, but everything else, vision, dental, anything else that you need to go to the doctor for, all of it will be covered. So obviously she isn't clear about where she stands because otherwise she would have said that.
Yeah.
And this isn't the first time. We can go back a few months from now
Yeah.
and watch what she says and see how it shifts. Just like Kamala Harris, who's actually far worse on her back and forth.
Yeah.
She is kind of pulling back. And what is she trying to do? I don't know. Maybe she's trying to appeal to the centrists, which is a huge mistake a lot of these Democrats are making, and Bernie included on some things regarding foreign policy. She is kind of pushing to the right a little bit to try to get those centrist votes is what I feel.
Yeah. Well, it's not only that, too, fam, is that you have to also pay attention. We've learned, it's kind of funny because years ago we learned this from TYT. You got to follow the money. You know,
Right.
and the reason why I trust Tulsi Gabbard when she says the things she does when it comes to universal health care or Medicare for all, I wish I had my beret on, thank you, Washington Bernie Kratz, is because she's not getting a lot of money from the health industry. There's no receipts there. But is that the case for Elizabeth Warren?
No. So we can go and look at a lot of things on Elizabeth Warren, which, I mean, I will, like I said, I have to do a separate entire video on her, because what a lot of people like to paint her as a progressive, and while she has done some good, and like I said in a post, I won't take that away from her, a lot of her accomplishment have been largely symbolic, have been a slap on the wrist to these banks and these insurance companies, and have been very hypocritical because she has taken that money in one way or another. So let's put out this information that I got from a citizen journalist. They also messaged us, and then someone on Facebook also tagged me in this, which was basically the fact that Warren's daughter has ties to the insurance industry.
Boom.
Now, to a lot of people, oh, why are you going after Warren's daughter? I'm not going after Warren's daughter. This is public information. The information is out there. Warren's daughter is a big wig for this insurance company, and she's a co-founder of Health Allies, which is part of United Health Group, which is a huge insurance company. And she's also an author, and I don't know much about her, but this is kind of telling, because the reason it's telling, and I'm not saying it's directly connected, but we've seen how Joe Biden's family is involved in politics, and how his son got away with so much due to their name.
Yeah.
Same with Clinton, same with Bush. I mean, we've seen this play out time and time again. So to say that it's not newsworthy is disingenuous.
Yeah. It's funny, too, the way John Delaney is really against Medicare for All. But why? Because he has all this money invested in insurance.
Right.
What? Oh, Elizabeth Warren is kind of flip-flopping like she always does, doing the two-step. Don't worry, TYT, don't call her out. We got this from here and stuff like that. And yet her daughter is tied to the industry and stands to profit a lot if the health industry makes money.
Exactly.
What a coincidence.
It's just, yeah. I mean, and you know what? Fine. Like, I'm not going to say that there is a direct connection, because I don't have, like, direct evidence. But if the past tells us the future, we see it with Donald Trump, and Democrats go up in arms, like, when it's about Donald Trump. If Donald Trump's son had, whenever Donald Trump's son does anything, they bring it up. So why is it not okay to say maybe there's something there, because her daughter has so much investment in big insurance companies? And I'm not saying go dox her daughter, go after her daughter, but I am saying keep that in mind. And especially since she has been, like, flip-flopping on Medicare for All, and it's something that we cannot have some sort of centrist position on. Medicare for All is the issue that every single candidate has to support, and all of them seem to be like kind of like flip-flopping after taking Bernie's bill, after adopting Jayapal's bill. A lot of them are just like, no. And we saw this coming. We knew that these people can say whatever they want, but when it comes to actions, we got to see where that money's coming from, who they're who they're dealing with, et cetera.
Especially when it's a person with a lack of integrity like Elizabeth Warren. There's a reason why Susan Sarandon said those things at the rally that she went to the other day. I said, at least Bernie's not a previous Republican, you know what I'm saying? Because
that was a direct thing.
It was directly towards Elizabeth Warren,
Warren.
because you know why? Because Susan Sarandon went to Standing Rock. Mrs. Elizabeth Warren, take a test to show that you're Native American, didn't show up. So actions speak louder than words. She sat on the sideline and didn't endorse Bernie, while Tulsi got up and walked away from her position, being crowned the next Khaleesi of the Democratic Party. She got up and walked away. So character matters. And when your daughter's tied to the industry, we're just going to look at your actions now. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it is. And if Tulsi had said this, everyone on TYT would be up in arms. Let's be real here, because when Tulsi honestly said there would be some private insurance, everyone from the Humanist Report to the actual entire TYT staff went and did all. I can't believe Tulsi's doing this.
Yeah.
She's back on Medicare for All. We have a picture here. Is Tulsi Gabbard waffling on Medicare for All? And then
Figsy, what happened to you? You used to be so beautiful.
Figsy. And then so they start attacking Tulsi, of course, on the Modi stuff. All of a sudden, everyone's an expert on relations in India, on what's going on in India. All of a sudden, everyone knows what's going on.
The Modi bots
are real. And yeah, like, okay, Modi might be a right winger, but what does that have to do with Tulsi Gabbard? Again, we went over this yesterday. Like, what does it have to do with her? It has nothing to do with her. And then you go look at the comparison as to how she talks about Elizabeth Warren, and it's entirely different. And then here she continues to talk about the anti-BDS bill.
It was a resolution.
Which was a resolution 246. And while I wasn't happy with Tulsi's vote, let's not kid ourselves here. The fact is that Ro Khanna, Bernie's co-chair, actually voted just like Tulsi. Bernie has said he's anti-BDS. He has said that he thinks it's anti-Semitic. I am not smearing Bernie. This is what he has said, and I disagree with him. And I disagree with Tulsi. I think they both can be better on this. And but people, of course, twisted it in a certain way to make her look like she's the culprit. And Ro Khanna actually voted to fund money directly to Israel with 1837, which was an actual resolution, an actual bill, 1837. That was the direct funneling of money to Israel. So we can look at how she talks about Elizabeth Warren, though, when Emma Vigilant goes and constantly praises. I mean, I don't have time to go through her whole Twitter feed, but here's an example where she's retweeting Elizabeth Warren on climate change. How are you going to believe that she's great for climate change when she's so pro-war? And I'm going to mention that in a minute. She also retweets something by Crystal Ball, but then makes it look like Bernie and Warren are like on exactly the same thing, how they're allies and they should be running mates and blah, blah, blah. So obviously there's this divide that we're seeing here. We're seeing some people be very much for Bernie Warren, and then some of us be very much for Bernie Tulsi. And there is a very clear divide.
Yeah,
on that.
and it's a very clear sign to me that TYT has aligned himself with the mainstream media, because the attacks on Tulsi are that of the mainstream media smears. Just smear the person's character, try to make connections. Like the Modi connection is just straight from the mainstream media hit book. The Assad apologist, straight from the mainstream media hit book. I mean, and to me, TYT has just become another facet of the mainstream media.
Right. And it's even more dangerous because when you say you're progressive, people are going to believe you, so they're going to take your word for it more, especially because you were there supposed to be the anti-MSNBC, the anti-CNN, and it's really a shame when you start sounding just like the them. People you were supposed to, completely not be. And so we have this thing on Mint Press, and it talks about how Elizabeth Warren has pretty much been on par with the industrial complex. Not only did she vote for Donald Trump's budget several times, but she has been very, very militant about Israel and funding them, and pretty much very much like Netanyahu. There is another article that I don't know where I have it, but I think right here on The Intercept by Glenn Greenwald. Yeah. Elizabeth Warren speaks on Israel and Gaza. It sounds like Netanyahu. The thing she was saying that Israel had the right to attack, that Hamas was dangerous. I mean, just repeating these same talking points. Why didn't she get criticized for that the way that Tulsi Gabbard got criticized? Well, not even like a decibel of what the way she was.
And this is why independent media works. I mean, I'm so sorry. I wasn't personally going after Elizabeth Warren on Venezuela. We looked at all the candidates on Venezuela, and it had a point-blank range. Elizabeth Warren talking back, flip-flopping on her earlier statements. She says to the press that she's against sanctions, she's against this, and then when she's right in front of somebody getting filmed, she says, Maduro's a dictator, we got to stand with our allies, meaning regime change. You're standing for regime change. Where has TYT been on Elizabeth Warren's military views, on her lack of foreign policy? I mean, Elizabeth Warren is just awful, terrible on foreign policy, and TYT has been nowhere on this. Nowhere.
Right. And I mean, everybody has a bias, but you have to, like, if it's going to be that blatant, then it's going to discredit you. The reality is their bias is showing. So I'll say that Elizabeth Warren's creation of the Credit Protection Bureau was good, but it was largely symbolic. Again, it was a slap on the wrist. It gave people something, but it didn't really do anything as far as something on the ground. Tulsi deserves her criticism on her previous LGBTQ stances, because I understand that people, that makes people uncomfortable. However, if you look at her record and if you look at her age as to when she shifted, she was actually far ahead of the Democrats of her time. Both Obama and Hillary Clinton shifted their positions, and Elizabeth Warren was a Republican.
Yeah.
Not that long ago.
Can I say something about that, fam, real quick?
Yeah.
Too? Number one, these comments came when she was younger. Number two, her voting record on LGBT is 100%.
Yeah.
Number three, she went to war. And I can tell you this. I was telling a fan of ours this morning, being in the military, being in boot camp, we noticed some gay guys. I noticed. I was a little bit older than most people. I wasn't right out of high school and stuff. And I noticed some guys avoiding certain guys because they were gay, and these were young men. But I remember going into the sub simulator. And the sub simulator was a simulation of a submarine taking on water in case something happens down below. And I remember a gay man and the straight man who was afraid to go near him just worked together in harmony because they understood that person next to you is your brother. That person is your brother or sister, and they're watching your back. Tulsi went off to war. And that is eye-opening, because then when you come back, you definitely look at gay people differently. You know what I'm saying? And she realized, she evolved, she saw things. So the fact that she went and did that, she should be 100% cleared for that. And if somebody's holding on to these issues, that's on them. She's voted 100% proper when it comes to LGBT issues, and she should be rewarded for that and coming forth. Because we all know, more than anything, the hardest thing a person can do in their life is breaking the programming from their parents that were taught to them growing up, programmed as a child. And I think Tulsi's been beyond than that, and she's never hid, and she's come forth, apologized, and she deserves her due. I'm sorry. Go ahead, fam.
No, that's fine. And I agree with you right there. I mean, I think it's just hypocritical. I understand why she was criticized, and we actually talked about it. We've talked about every single thing that she's been criticized about. One thing I do want to point out is the whole Modi thing. We're gonna have to do that again, because people still are regurgitating these same smears. But the fact that Tulsi Gabbard took thousands from members of the right-wing Hindu group is entirely debunked. It is false. It was debunked on December 2018, but people are still using it, including some renowned journalists. Breaking news: Hindu Americans financially support Hindu American politician. The height of Hindu-phobic political reporting. And this is by Sugak Shukia. And basically it says Tulsi Gabbard took thousands from members of the right-wing group, which is a damaging claim. And basically it's entirely false, because nobody can tie this directly to her getting direct money from these people. The only thing that happens, again, as we talked about it last night, is that she's getting some money from people who happen to be part of that party or support that party, who live in the United States. She's not running for president in India, so it's a little bit ridiculous to claim that. And also, again, everybody's now an expert on Indian foreign relations.
Yeah.
And everybody now knows everything there is to know about India, and everybody now cares. Like, it's just like when has this happened with any other candidate?
They didn't care when the Clintons met Modi. They didn't care when Obama met Modi. Oh, it was just different when
he
Tulsi
had a
Gabbard met
bromance
Modi.
with Modi.
Seriously.
Bromance. Yeah. Are we, like, the hypocrisy to me is really unnerving. And so what happened yesterday is I posted this badly worded tweet because I looked at this meme, and then I researched it, and it all was true. And then this gentleman named Rob, the Philosopher Rob on Twitter, he had a similar tweet before, and I guess someone took it and made it into a meme. But he had the right words, which were that Elizabeth Warren took money from CEO and shareholders from all of these companies, which is true, because if you go on Open Secrets and FEC, you will find it. So what Emma did, though, was use the same gaslighting tactics that the neoliberals have, and the DNC types and the Hillary types have used against burners before. And she pretty much said, is this QAnon? Now, you guys have heard me mention that from the little that I know about QAnon, because I don't know a lot, I don't buy it, and whatever, that's my opinion, but I'm open to reading more about it so I can refute it in every way I want. But the fact of the matter is that by doing this, she is literally just trying to discredit me in order to completely ignore the fact that the information is actually true. We can argue semantics all day. We can argue the words all day. But the fact is, if you go under FEC, if you go under Open Secrets, you will find these names. You will find Bain Capital. You will find Morgan Stanley. You will find NBC Universal. All of these people have given money to Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
And it's not people, it is shareholders in big amounts. You have to look at the amounts of money, because then people came back and were like, well, Bernie, no, Bernie had way smaller amounts. And I could literally send like so many pictures of the vast amounts of money. And what Elizabeth Warren did, which we've talked about on the show before, is she funneled money from her Senate campaign directly to her presidential campaign, and then said that she wasn't taking PAC money, but really, and then on top of that, she gave an interview to Cenk, out of all people, and said, I will be taking, we need to do whatever we can to defeat Donald Trump in general, when he asked her if she was going to take corporate PAC money. So, I mean, she's not lying. I mean, she's being honest, at least, but a lot of her supporters aren't. And let's be real here. It's very clear who Emma is supporting.
Yeah.
It is very clear. A lot of you don't want to buy it, but it is extremely clear that she's supporting Elizabeth Warren. If you look at her Twitter feed, if you look at her comments, if you look at the entirety of TYT. But if you guys want to look this up yourself, you can look at the links. It's Open Secrets. I posted it on the Twitter, because if you look at my tweet, I retweeted it with the correct wording, and I put Rob's original post there.
Yeah.
And I talked about it, and that was that. That's pretty much what I did. And this isn't just me saying this. I mean, this is other people who have done the research and found this even before I did. So you guys can believe whatever you want, but why are we sitting here discussing the semantics of what I said, or if I believe in QAnon or not, which I don't, over the fact that Elizabeth Warren has ties to these CEOs and shareholders? That's what we should be discussing. That subject matter, not anything else. That's a distraction to avoid the real conversation, which is follow the money.
Yeah, and you know, I was going to say we have to get out of here really soon, but I wanted to go over to Chris's tweets, because I know you have a little bit left there, but these Chris's tweets, just if you go to the end, they really just follow a pattern, and Chris wrote some really good stuff there, and you can see. I just want to put it up, and he tells the whole story. Let me get it going. It's right there. That's the first one. Even the most basic of research will show that all the points I made are factual. Anna Kasparian and Cenk are clients of the CAA, which is founded by the two individuals that WikiLeaks revealed blacklisted Tulsi by endorsing Bernie over Hillary. Now, just a correction, this is a group that split off of CAA. They're still a subsidiary of CAA. All the people came from CAA. That's what Anna said the other day.
For endorsing Bernie over Hillary, not by endorsing Bernie over Hillary.
But once again, they're not clients of CAA. They're clients of a subsidiary, a break-off of CAA, UTA. But it's from everybody from CAA. They just started their own thing.
And we know who CAA is.
Yes, we do.
CAA is we've talked about it during Epstein. Epstein has a lot of ties to CAA. Harvey Weinstein had a lot of ties to CAA. It's Hollywood. It's big. We're in LA. It's the elites, and you're only in CAA if you do certain things.
That's right. If you play ball, baby. Number two, after the 2016 primaries, Jeffrey Katzenberger, one of Hillary's biggest donors, both in 2008 and 2016, gave them a $20 million check funding TYT. So this is where it really begins now. Now you got this check coming in for $20 million from all these neoliberals, and what happens? TYT was one of the most egregious networks promoting the Russiagate hysteria, which was created by Hillary and the DNC to distract
from the fact that the
public's attention from the DNC leaks, which revealed they rigged the primaries. So that's what it was all about. They don't want to get into the DNC primaries that were rigged. They created Russiagate. People bought into it, and TYT was a big part of playing that role of keeping people distracted. They took the money and they pivoted right into we got to beat Trump. They didn't talk about, and that's why I said I was so mad at John for kind of just blowing off the possible lawsuit in Florida from Jared Beck. It was big. It was huge. And TYT was not there for us, for the people who felt most cheated, who were the people who subscribed to TYT and stood by TYT. Number 4, they loved Tulsi prior to funding, and the fact that all of Tulsi's policy positions have gone further to the left since 2016 tells you all you need to know. Now, here's our girl, Emma. Listen to her rhetoric then.
But there are so many future progressives that are going to give a voice to everybody that has been screaming and saying, DNC, wake up, pay attention. And I think that voice, honestly, if I was to put money on it now, the most important progressive voice is going to be Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is perhaps the most courageous politician of 2016, and I'm including Bernie Sanders in that, because yes, Bernie Sanders is as courageous as you can get, but what Tulsi Gabbard did when she stood up to the Democratic establishment, when she did not have a presidential campaign backing her, when she didn't have, at this point, a lot of momentum, Bernie had a lot of momentum going into 2016. Tulsi Gabbard had a lot to lose. She was a fairly no-name congresswoman who had a leadership position in the DNC, and she risked that all, and she spurned all of that for the courage of her convictions. She stood up to those Democratic donors. She stood up to the establishment, and she said, what you're doing is wrong. You are
This is the Emma that we need.
What happened, Emma?
I mean, that's what we're saying. We've been saying this, and I agree with her 100% there. Absolutely 100%. But you have to notice the difference. We cannot ignore the difference of that versus calling every single Tulsi supporter a Modi bot, which is calling her a Hindu fascist, which is calling her an Assad apologist, which is completely smearing her and going along with the same MSNBC type of smears, and then propping up someone like Elizabeth Warren, who she didn't even mention then.
You know what song's in my head, fam? Money, 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 money.
And it's really, really sad because, unfortunately, when you take that money from a venture capitalist, which, by the way, we didn't get to mention who Jeffrey Katzenberg was. He was the ex-CEO of Disney, involved in DreamWorks, has a lot of money. He's a billionaire. He has worked for Obama, for Hillary Clinton. He has donated so much money to the neoliberal establishment. That is who this man is, and that is who they took the money from. So for you guys to tell me that's not going to affect their reporting is the most naive thing I have ever heard in my life.
And number 5, from our boy Chris Tish Lias from San Francisco. Chris, we love you.
Thank you for this.
If you ever see and Chris was all over there helping us out yesterday when Emma started attacking us, and John threw his little 2 cents in, and the Humanist Report. But Chris, if you ever watch our Tulsi time video, which is on our YouTube channel, I'm sitting in the car. There's a guy who comes up and shakes my hand. That's Chris. We love Chris. And Chris put number 5, last but most definitely not least. Fam, what'd you talk about? What did Elizabeth say that she was going to do?
She was going to take money. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier that you don't believe in unilateral disarmament. So does this only apply in the primaries, or will you carry this over to the general election or any other election you'll have going forward?
So this is for primaries. Look, I do not believe in unilateral disarmament. We need to win. We need to win in 2020. And when we hit 2020, and we're in a race against Donald Trump, when we're in a race for control of the Senate and control of the House and in control of the state houses and the governor's mansions, in all of those, the Republicans are going to be bringing a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of dark money, a lot of super PACs, all to the fight. We play by the same rules. And in that one, I say we got to be all in. Because we have to be
wow.
Boom. We could take dark money.
I'm sorry. She's calling her movement a grassroots movement. That is not a grassroots movement. The grassroots does not take corporate PAC money. The grassroots doesn't care about that. The grassroots relies on people power, on millions and millions of people coming together and donating money like they do to Bernie Sanders every single day, whether it's $2, whether it's $27 or 27, or 27 cents. Because that is a people's movement. So you don't get to call yourself a grassroots movement when you do that.
Well, let's just leave it at that, And I also like to say I hope that Bernie Sanders steps up and speaks out for Tulsi Gabbard if they cheat her on these debates. I put a tweet up there. But we got to get going now. We want to thank you all for watching us. And the reason why we always mention our Patreon, if you can, it's because we're going up against the machine. As you can see, they have a $20 million check, and TYT is attacking us, which is a good thing because we know we got their attention and we're doing things right. So if you can help out, subscribe to our YouTube, our Twitter, our Facebook, and maybe our Patreon for Pasta Jardula
and Fiorella Isabel,
Johnny Tsunami,
Come out. Bye, guys.
Support independent media, and we love you.